Education is the passport to the future for tomorrow, belongs to those prepare for it today. Let us remember one book, one pen, one child, and one teacher can change the world. Education is the key to unlocking the world, a passport to freedom. With every book, when you go to the school. Yes, today I'm here with explanation of grade 9 English first chapter, The Fun They Had. The author of this story is Isaac Asimov. So, this is a very light story and it is set in the future. It will make all of you love school. So, this story is regarding school life and how those children who do not go to school miss school. The setting of the story is in the future when perhaps there'll be no school, no books. Now, how those students will miss going to school and will feel that their ancestors, that is the present generation, you all had fun going to school, meeting and helping each other. In the end, we came to know that this is an imagination of a young girl named Margie who comes to know that their ancestors used to go to school and all the children used to study together. She feels that they all had a lot of fun when they went to school. So, when we read the story, we feel that school life is very good and we are fortunate that we have real schools where we go, meet friends, and get a chance to study together. So now, we'll be discussing about the main objectives of this lesson and then introduction of the author, previous knowledge about the story, an introduction of the story, detailed summary, and comparative points of the two schools, detailed story, comparison between two schools with the help of pictures. So let's begin. So now first, the general objectives to enable the students to read, write, speak, understand English correctly, to enrich the vocabulary of the students to use the same correctly, to enable the students to understand the difficult words and phrases in the lesson. These are the specific objectives now to acquaint the students scientific story, to enable the students about robots and robotic teachers, to enable the students about variety of modern teaching aid. Now, first about the author in short. So Isaac Asimov was born on 2nd January 1920 in Petrovichi, Russia. Isaac Asimov immigrated with his family to the United States and became a biochemistry professor while pursuing writing. He published his first novel Pebble in the Sky in 1950, an immensely prolific author who penned nearly 500 books. He published influential scientific fictional works like I, Robot and the Foundation trilogy, as well as the books in a variety of other genres. He died in New York City on 6th April 1992. And Asimov's interest in science fiction had begun as a boy when he noticed several of the early science fiction magazines for sale on the newsstand in his family's candy store. His father refused to let him read them, but when a new magazine appeared on the scene called Science Wonder Stories, Asimov convinced his father that it was a serious journal of science, and as a result, he was allowed to read it. Asimov quickly became a devoted fan of science fiction. So, this is the picture of Isaac Asimov. So, let's have a quick, brief introduction of him. He was born on 021 1920, and he died on 6th April 1992. His full name Isaac Asimov, and by occupation he was a writer. Born on 2nd January 1920 and died on 6th April 1992. He received his education from Columbia University, and then further he studied with Boston University of Medicine. His place of birth, Petrovichi, Russia, and his place of death, New York. And originally, he was known as Isaac Yudovic Asimov. Just picture of him. Now, he was a prolific and varied writer. So Isaac Asimov was also known for writing books on a wide variety of subjects outside of science fiction and talking on topics like astronomy, biology, math, religion, and literary biography. A small sample of notable titles include The Human Body, published in 1963, Asimov's Guide to the Bible, 1969, The Mystery Murder at the ABA, 1976, and his 1979 autobiography, In Memory Yet Green. So now, what kind of school would you want to have in the future? I'd like to think the answer for this. So probably if the same question I would have asked, then I would have replied where the teacher would emphasize not only on the subjects, but also on his activities and our manners. So this kind of school I'd like to have in the future. So how much will the computer be involved in the future education? Okay, as per I think the computer will be involved in the future education, as nowadays it's Corona time and all the students were probably involved in the online classes, and the use of computers will be increasing day by day, even in the near future also. So will you feel more happy in a more developed high-tech society? Why or why not? So as far as this question is concerned, you may have a different answer also, but I think if in the process of technological and technical progress, new kinds of products and services are created that improve the lives of people, it can be assumed that at certain times, people may seem to be happier than people can feel happier. So now let's move on to the introduction of this story now. Now this story, Isaac Asimov depicts a school system which is independent of human teacher and based on technical advance. The main advantage is the individual teaching, which can train the talents, and in this system there are no human mistakes, and it is a perfect way to give every child the same knowledge and information. But there are some disadvantages too. Human peoples do not learn like computer. I think learning has to be a kind of fun, otherwise the probability for getting is higher. Studies have come to the result that you can learn things better if you have fun while you are learning. So another disadvantage is that there are no social relationships. like at school today. If a child lives in a neighborhood with no other children, it is alone and has no social relationships with other children. Learning with friends at school can be a motivation. At school today, the peoples improve their communication and their behavior in a group, not single. In Asimov's future vision, there are no human teachers who can give moral values to the children. Giving moral values is the duty of their parents because a mechanical teacher cannot give moral values. Now, in the year 2157, the 13-year-old Tommy finds an old book. Now, this is a quick summary, and he and Margie, who is 11, find it strange that the words on paper do not move after having been read. Nowadays, they only read stories on a computer screen. The book is about school centuries ago. Margie is very surprised that in the past peoples had a person as a teacher and that all the children of the same age learned the same thing and went to a school house with other children. Margie wants to read more of the book, but first she has to learn with her machine teacher whose level is too advanced for her, and she thinks school in those days was much better than today. Now, school in the future will be very bad. School nowadays is very good and the peoples have much fun. For example, Margie says, I hate school. And in the last two lines, there is written, Margie was thinking about how the kids must have loved it in the old days. I also think that school nowadays is better than in the story. In the future, in the school, as described by Asimov, the social aspect is lost. There are no forms anymore. Everybody sits in front of his computer and the people cannot learn together because every child learns different things. But school today is not as good and funny as Margie thinks. Almost nobody today would say that he likes school. But there are many problems like forms with too many peoples. But I think regular teachers cannot be the solution. Now, I think the story, the fun they had, is very interesting. It shows how the world could be in 2157 when everybody owns a machine teacher. Isaac Asimov's representation of a non-desirable school of the future gives you food for thought, how school should be and how much computers determines our lives. So in my opinion, it's an excellent story. So now let's differentiate between the present and old school and future school. So the basic difference between the present, old and the future schools are as follows. First, regarding materials. So present school probably they are using printed on papers, yellow books that are printed on papers, yellow crinkly. So when they grow old, they become yellow and crinkly also. So, and what in the future, we might be having now telebook, ebook on the screen, and they can be changed also. But when in the present school, we are having those printed on the papers. When we want them to be changed, we need to print them again. So this will be the difference between present and future school. And next about teachers, present school, they are having teacher or real man, communication, emotional, not perfectly correct. Whereas future school, they'll be having robotic or mechanical teacher giving test after test, no communication, large, cold, black, ugly, more smart, and always be correct. And now regarding this present school teaching in a building, many students are taught the same thing, but whereas now in the future school, in his her own house, the students need to study. Needless to leave home, they don't even have to leave their home. Each kid could be taught differently. The classes are always on at the same time every day. There's no different timing for the classes. Now, regarding homework and test, the present school probably they are having exam test papers, writing, essay writing, etc. But whereas in the future school, they'll be having this process to write them out in a computer by pressing the keys and then put them out on the slot. If they need to put these assignment or homework or test in the slots within the stipulated period or time. If they fail to do, it will go in the missing. So let's have a quick review on the story. So Margie even wrote about it that night in her diary on the page headed May 17, 2157. She wrote, "Today Tommy found a real book. It was very old book. Margie's grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him there was a time when all stories were printed on paper. They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly, and it was awfully funny to read words that still, instead of moving the way they were supposed to on a screen, you know. And then when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words on it that it had when they read it for the first time." Now, G and Tommy, what a waste. When you are through with the books, you just throw it away. I guess our television screen must have a million books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away. Same with mine, said Margie. She was 11 and hadn't seen as many telebooks as Tommy had. He was 13. She said, "Where do you find it?" "In my house," he pointed without looking because he was busy reading in the attic. "What's it about? School?" Margie was scornful. "School? What's there to write about school? I hate school." Margie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the county inspector. He was a round little man with a red face and a whole box of tools with dials and wires. He smiled at Margie and gave her an apple, then took the teacher apart. Margie had hoped he wouldn't know how to put it together again, but he knew how all right. And after an hour or so, there it was again, large and black and ugly, with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. That wasn't so bad. The part Margie hated most was the slot where she had to put homework and test papers. She always had to write them out in a punch code they made her learn when she was 6 years old, and the mechanical teacher calculated the mark in no time. Margie was disappointed. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. So she said to Tommy, "Why would anyone write about school?" Tommy looked at her with her superior eyes. "Because it's not our kind of school, stupid. This is old kind of school that they had hundreds and hundreds of years ago." he added loftily, pronouncing the word carefully. Centuries ago. Margie was hurt. Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago. She read the book, ordered his soldier for a while, then said, anyway, they had a teacher. Sure, they had a teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher. It was a man. A man? How could a man be a teacher? Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked them questions. A man isn't smart enough. Sure, he is. My father knows her as much as my teacher. Margie wasn't Margie wasn't prepared to dispute that. She said, I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach me. Tommy screamed with laughter. You don't know much, Margie. The teacher didn't live in the house. They had special building and all the kids went there. And all the kids learned the same thing. Sure, if they were the same age. But my mother says a teacher has to be adjusted to fit the minds of each boy and girl it teaches, and each kid has to be taught differently. They weren't even half finished when Margie's mother called, Margie, school. Margie looked up. Not yet, Mama. Now, said Mrs. Jones, and it's probably time for Tommy too. Margie said to Tommy, can I read the book some more with you after school? Maybe, he said nonchalantly. He walked away whistling, the dusty old book tucked beneath his arm. Margie went into the schoolroom. It was right next to her bedroom, and the mechanical teacher was on and waiting for her. It was always on at the same time every day except Saturday and Sunday, because her mother said little girls learned better if they learned at regular hours. The screen was lit up and it said, today's arithmetic lesson is on the addition of proper fraction. Please insert yesterday's homework in the proper slot. Margie did so with a sigh. She was thinking about the old school they had when her grandfather's grandfather was a little boy. All the kids from the whole neighborhood came laughing and shouting in the schoolyard, sitting together in the schoolroom, going home together at the end of the day. They learned the same things so they could help one another on the homework and talk about it. And the teacher were people. Margie was thinking about how the kids must have loved it in the old days. She was thinking about the fun they had. Now, these are the word meanings. This was the whole about the story. Now, fiction, it means books and stories about imaginary people and events. Crinkly, having many thin folds, be supposed to, should, be through with, to have finished doing. Sloth, place your coin in the slot before getting on the bus. Punch, a quick, strong hit with your fist. Superior, having a higher position or rank than someone else. Loftily, lofty, seeming to think you are better than other people. Dispute, serious disagreement between two countries or two group of people. Argue, disagree with someone in words, often in an angry way. Tuck, to push the edge of a cloth or paper into something so that it looks tidier and stays in place. Now, these are some present old school classrooms. These are all the pictures of present old school classrooms. Now, what do you think? These are the future school classroom which we might be having, which you might be having in your future school. These are all future school classrooms. So now, dear students, it's your turn. It's your turn to let us know which type of school you are expecting to have in the future and which type of school you love the most. Thank you, everyone, and have a great time. Have a great day.